So Dr. Gartner, a lot of people, myself included, are probably thinking, oh, Lord, I lose words from time to time, especially when I'm tired. The one thing we do know about Donald Trump is he appears to have an abnormal amount of energy. And to be fair to him, he travels a lot. He's constantly got, big state visits going on. He's on endlessly giving press conferences. He's endlessly having big cabinet meetings. He's not a man that's hiding in the basement. Is it possible that these are just signs of extreme fatigue?
Well, no, it's actually not possible.
Okay.
No matter how tired you or I might be, no matter how drunk we might be, no matter how stressed we might be, no matter how old we might get, you don't commit what we call phonemic paraphasias, which is to use a word that is actually not a word. It has a kernel of a word in it, but then we just kind of flub the ending because we can't complete the word. And we've got tons of examples of that. I mean, during the campaign, there were supercuts of people making fun of him for his mispronunciations or malapropisms, as it were. But these are actually medical signs of a serious cognitive decline and most likely of dementia. Since this last time I was on the show, I was on the show a month ago, and I have to say, Joanna, I'm actually been itching to get back on because every time he does something demented, I say, I can't wait to tell Joanna about this one.
Well, the weird noise he made was he goes at the McDonald's. He says, I like the fish. I like it.
Right.
And you're like, what are you saying? And also, I like the fish. And then he makes a sort of jerky motion with his hand as he splutters out the noise. And it just felt like this is something different we're seeing.
Right. Exactly. This isn't something people do when they're tired. We don't lose our ability to use language altogether when we're tired. We don't lose our ability to follow a thought. We don't. So it would be really euphemizing, or sane washing it to make it sound as if it's something within normal limits. It's not within normal limits. And one of the things that I'd like to point out is I believe his doctors who have examined him know that this is not within normal limits. And I think the information that has leaked out is enough for us to conclude that they know he has organic cognitive decline. 2 pieces of information came out since I think the last time I was on the show. We knew he had this second presidential annual physical. They said they did advanced imaging. Okay, well, Trump said not once, not twice, but 3 times that he had took cognitive tests, plural. Okay, so not just a screening exam like the MOCA, they gave him multiple tests. Okay, we do not give people multiple cognitive tests unless we suspect there's a serious cognitive problem. We also never, ever, ever in medicine give someone an MRI unless we suspect or need to rule out a serious problem. So we know they gave, and he leaked out that the advanced imaging was an MRI. So we know his doctors gave him multiple cognitive tests and an MRI. They didn't say explicitly it was of the brain, but we can certainly be sure they scanned his brain. If they're giving him neuropsychological battery, they're scanning his brain, because if Donald Trump were just an ordinary patient and you saw these kinds of serious signs of dementia, a responsible doctor would give him both a neuropsychological battery and an MRI. Of course, they're not telling us why they gave those tests. They're not telling us the results.
Oh dear. This is nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking, isn't it? The other thing that we've noticed, and then I want to get into his sort of disinhibited behaviour, the way that he names people. We just had him shouting, "Be quiet, piggy," to a reporter. I mean, that just seems so inappropriate for a president, even for one who likes to buck the trend and like to, as they call it, say it as he sees it.
He's so crude and so offensive that it's easy to kind of miss the fact that he's deteriorating. But when people have a personality disorder, as he does, as we know he has severe malignant narcissism. And by the way, I also think he has hypomanic temperament. That's all his energy and why he's up all night, etc.
Hypomanic energy. Yeah. What is that exactly? Because, I mean...
No, I wrote a book about it called The Hypomanic Edge, actually. There are people who are on the bipolar spectrum who don't meet criteria for bipolar disorder. They have hypomania, hypo being Greek for less than. So they don't have full-blown mania, which is a serious psychotic disorder, will end you up in the psychiatric hospital, but they have energy, grandiosity, creativity, confidence, arrogance, impatience, irritability. Actually, I think Bill Clinton actually also has the same temperament. I wrote a book about that too, biography of Bill Clinton, analyzing him as having hypomania. That temperament combines with your character. Now, I happen to believe that Bill Clinton has a basically very life-giving or positive character. He wants to help people. So he drove his, and he also has hypersexuality, but he drove his energy through those venues. Trump is essentially, has always been a malignant, malevolent person. These personality disorders are lifetime disorders. And in his case, it's actually an untreatable personality disorder. We believe that malignant narcissism is untreatable. When people develop dementia, they become the worst versions of themselves. Whatever personality issues or problems they have begin to deteriorate, and they become even more crude, disorganized, aggressive, confused versions of that personality disorder. So, he was always that way, but in this term he started cursing a lot. That was a departure, right? And this kind of saying quiet piggy, it's so disinhibited and crude. And other ways in which he's been disinhibited and impulsive. He was supposed to have trade negotiations with the Prime Minister of Canada, and then because Doug Ford, the Premier of Ottawa, posted some video of Ronald Reagan saying that he was against tariffs.
Yeah, it was an ad campaign.
Right, it was an ad campaign. Yeah, and Donald Trump, and he was against tariffs, so it's fair to play to him. He put a video out that had Ronald Reagan talking about it. He got so irritated by that video that he called off the trade negotiations. I mean, who does that? Who calls off a high-level meeting with a head of state because you got pissed off about something you saw on social media over your cornflakes that morning? That's the kind of level of impulsivity we're talking about. And even with his tariffs, it's almost like the Queen of Hearts, off with her head, 200% tariffs. I saw something on social media that annoyed me.
It's so interesting. And when you say that this is, he's a malignant narcissist, this has been with him since childhood. I remember you saying, and frankly, I thought you were being hyperbolic when you said that there was an incident of him throwing rocks at little children when he was growing up in Queens, and I thought that can't possibly be true. And then, in fact, I found the anecdote in Maggie Haberman, the reporter from the New York Times book. I think the book is called Confidence Bounder, where she has the very anecdote you were talking about. So I apologize if I looked slightly quizzical when you said that, because I couldn't believe it would be true. But do these symptoms of dementia also get worse when you are under a period of real stress? Because I'm thinking about
absolutely.
So the impact of the Epstein files, which has been going on and on and on, and it's the story that no matter how he tries to change the narrative, it always comes back to the Epstein files. Is that something that will be gnawing away somewhere within his brain that just makes things worse?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, that kind of stress would grind anyone down. But if you're vulnerable the way he is, it's going to express itself even more dramatically. And also, because he's a malignant narcissist, anything which doesn't affirm his grandiosity and his omnipotence, because his grandiosity has gotten to almost psychotic degrees at this point, is a mortal threat. Mobilizing, an atomic reaction. So the fact that he's perpetually being bombarded by waves and waves of these threats, it is going to take a toll, and it is going to be disorganizing for him.
Dr. Gardner, John, can you just explain? Trump says he lost it when he was asked about his raspy voice, and he sort of exploded, and he appeared to have heard the word polyp, which wasn't in the question.
I was shouting at people because they were stupid.
Well, I think one of the reasons he exploded is because it touched a nerve. His explanation that he was yelling at somebody over tariffs or something to that effect, I think is nonsense. The reason I think it's nonsense is it's sort of like the argument that he has bruises on his hand because he was shaking so many hands. Wouldn't explain why he had bruises on his other hand. if he yelled, and that's why he lost his voice, it wouldn't explain why we're seeing an overall trend for his voice to become more raspy, right, more sort of de-energized, more kind of like he's slightly slurring his words. We're seeing a overall breakdown in his capacity to use language and words. He's having trouble spitting them out.
Well, and I love your description of him as the Mad Queen in Alice in Wonderland, because yesterday you saw the 6 members of the military saying, please don't do anything that's illegal. And his reaction seems like the most overreaction of all time, because he basically says this is treasonous, it should be punished by death. And then the White House, poor long-standing Caroline Leavitt, has to then say, no, of course he doesn't really mean he's going to execute them.
No, off with their heads.
Off with their heads. Off with their heads. It's literally the Mad Queen. He's turned into the Mad Queen from Alice in Wonderland.
He's turned into the Mad Queen from Alice in Wonderland.
All right,
exactly.
So let's. There's a wonderful example that you found here of him being unable to keep his numbers straight. Do you want to read this paragraph? Because when you're so good at reading Trumpisms, and we get lots of comments from people that particularly enjoy your iteration of Trump. I'm looking
well, we also got comments from people who didn't like it, out of fairness, but
true. But why don't you read this line out and then analyze it for us, or the paragraph?
Well, and we're going to make America dream a word that. 2 words that you didn't have. You didn't have those 2 words. Remember when Biden said it's all about 3 words, the American dream. You don't want to ever get in that situation. Remember that? That was not good. It's all about 3 words, American dream.
And we're going to make the American dream a word that 2 words that you didn't have. You didn't have those 2 words. Remember when Biden said it's all about 3 words, the American dream. You don't want to ever get in that situation. Remember that was not good. It's all about 3 words. American dream.
When I was in graduate school, I remember they used to talk about, well, could people fake being a schizophrenic, for example?
Right,
and
like
actually,
Vinny the Chin. When I arrived in New York, Vinny the Chin it would be spotted walking along a street very near our apartment in a kind of bathrobe, and people would go, he's sad, it's sad. And obviously it was a defense for some hideous mob case that was going on. I can't remember what happened to him now, but anyway, you're right. Please
they
continue.
Him. They didn't fall for it. But,
they didn't fall for it,
it's funny
that's right.
Because everyone wears their pajamas now. All our kids are wearing pajamas outside. But but the thing is, the thought disorder is hard to simulate. In other words, it's hard to actually make up, even for a comedian, to make up speech that is as disordered as the disordered speech of someone with schizophrenia or dementia, because it's so disjointed in a way we almost couldn't make up, if you know what I mean. It's hard to think that way. It's like, obviously you could say, I have a hallucination, but to have your thoughts fragment in such a way, and I know there's some longer passages from that McDonald speech that maybe we'll have a chance to get into, but you just see that one thought is not following another. It's he's just all over the place, veering from the topic in this kind of tangential thinking where he can't complete a thought, can't complete a sentence, stops in mid-sentence, starts a new one, stops in mid-sentence, starts a new one, starts talking about something irrelevant, then has an association to that irrelevant thing, then starts making sounds, boom, boom. You know, it's word salad. That's actually a technical term, believe it or not, word salad for thought disordered speech.